Imagine a paradise in the Caribbean. Sun, sand, crystal clear water. But what if that paradise was just a mask for something truly horrifying? That's the story we're diving into today. A story of incredible wealth, untouchable power, and the terrifying secrets of one private island.
So the whole twisted saga of Jeffrey Epstein, it really all comes back to this one place, a 72-acre private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Now, from the outside, it looked like the definition of luxury, right? But underneath that shiny surface was a deep, dark, and really disturbing mystery.
Yeah, its official name was Little St. James, but let's be real, nobody calls it that. The world came to know it by a much more sinister name, Epstein Island. This place was his personal kingdom, totally sealed off from prying eyes. So the big question is, what in the world was actually going on behind that picture-perfect facade?
Okay, let's break down what this place actually had. I mean, on one hand, it's exactly what you'd expect from a billionaire's playground, right? You've got your luxury resort, a private cinema, the works. But then it gets weird, really weird. A strange blue and white temple, rumors flying around about secret underground tunnels, and get this, CCTV cameras everywhere, watching every single move. You know, this wasn't just about keeping people out. It felt more like a fortress built to keep secrets in.
So to really get a handle on the island, you have to understand the man who built this whole world. Who exactly was the architect behind all this deceit?
You know, it's kind of wild when you think about it. Jeffrey Epstein's story doesn't start in some high-powered boardroom. Nope, it starts in a classroom. He was a math teacher back in the 70s. It was his raw ambition that eventually pulled him into the ruthless, high-stakes game of Wall Street.
And man, did he rise fast. He was brilliant with money, and he used that skill to get in with some seriously wealthy people, like Leslie Wexner, the billionaire behind Victoria's Secret. See, Epstein didn't just manage their fortunes. He built this whole exclusive club, this irresistible world for the rich and powerful. And with that access, he built his own empire. The biggest private home in Manhattan, a massive ranch out in New Mexico, a place in Paris, and, of course, the private island. He flew all these powerful people around on his private jet, a jet that got a truly sickening nickname, the Lolita Express. And that name, well, it was a horrifying clue about what his empire was really built on.
But here's the thing. At the end of the day, Epstein's true power wasn't just his money. It was his contacts, his network. That web of powerful friends was his real shield against the world.
And when I say vast, I mean it's staggering. We're talking about a social circle that included former presidents, tech titans, royalty, Hollywood stars, you name it. Flight logs, for instance, showed Bill Clinton on Epstein's jet a lot, like 26 times. Donald Trump was a buddy back in the 90s, though they apparently had a falling out later. The sheer weight of these connections, it created this feeling that he was completely untouchable.
But out of this whole web of powerful names, maybe the most shocking allegations of all pointed directly at the British royal family, specifically at Prince Andrew. And this came from the courageous testimony of one survivor, Virginia Giuffre, who said,
"And the fallout for the prince was absolutely massive. I mean, it was career-ending. The allegations, plus a photograph that circulated everywhere, forced him to step away from all his royal duties. He ended up paying a multi-million-dollar settlement, and eventually he was even stripped of his title. Just a complete and stunning fall from the highest levels of power."
So this all leads to a really chilling question, right? How did one man maintain so much influence over so many powerful people? Well, a discovery by the FBI might hold the answer. They found tons of CDs and photos, which immediately raised suspicions. It led investigators straight to a very dark theory, that Epstein wasn't just building friendships. He was potentially gathering blackmail material, using it as leverage to keep all these powerful people trapped in his web.
for so long, it seemed like this wall of power and influence was just too high to climb. The victims' voices were ignored, they were silenced, but their bravery and their absolute refusal to give up, well, that persistence finally sparked a fire, forcing a reckoning that even the most powerful people couldn't ignore anymore.
And what a long, brutal fight it was. I mean, this goes all the way back to 2005 when the first police report was filed by a survivor named Courtney Wild. But then in 2008, the whole thing was nearly buried for good by this secret sweetheart plea deal. It really took another 10 years, and the incredible investigative work of journalist Julie K. Brown to drag this whole scandal back into the light. Her reporting basically forced law enforcement's hand, and in July 2019, Epstein was finally arrested again on federal charges.
Okay, just look at the difference here. It's insane. That first plea deal in 2008, he was facing serious time, and he got an 18-month sentence, and he only served 13 months of that. And get this, he was allowed to leave the jail every day for work release. Compare that to 2019 when he was facing life in prison. That first deal, negotiated in total secret, wasn't just a slap on the wrist. It was a complete miscarriage of justice that protected not only him, but everyone in his powerful circle from ever facing real consequences.
So here we are. The world is watching. It finally looks like all these dark secrets are about to be dragged into the light in a federal courtroom. And then the story takes a turn that is so bizarre, so controversial, it almost doesn't seem real.
On August 10, 2019, Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his jail cell. The official cause of death came out almost immediately: suicide. Case closed. But the details of what happened that night, they didn't add up for a lot of people, and they did absolutely nothing to calm down the storm of public suspicion.
I mean, just think about what they said happened that night. In one of the most secure jails in the entire country, on that one specific night, the security cameras outside his cell just malfunctioned. The two guards who were supposed to be watching him, they reportedly fell asleep. And on top of all that, he had just been taken off suicide watch. It's just a string of unbelievable coincidences. And all of that fueled the theory that's still alive and well today, that Epstein didn't kill himself, he was silenced.
So, Epstein himself was gone. But the story and the fight for justice, that was far from over. All eyes immediately turned to his inner circle, his accomplices, and to the massive trove of secrets he left behind in his files.
And at the top of that list was Ghislaine Maxwell. She was his right-hand woman, and prosecutors argued she was way more than just an accomplice. They called her the mastermind of the entire trafficking network. The FBI tracked her down to a remote farmhouse in July 2020. Her trial was filled with absolutely gut-wrenching testimony from survivors, and in the end, she was sentenced to 20 years behind bars.
Now, obviously, no amount of money can ever heal the trauma his victims went through. But a compensation fund was set up using what was left of Epstein's estate. That fund ended up paying out over $121 million to more than 150 survivors. It's not justice, but it is at least a tangible acknowledgement of the horrors they endured.
Meanwhile, the fight for the truth continues. There's been so much public pressure that a new law was passed, the Epstein Files Transparency Act. It basically sets a deadline for the government to release all the documents it has on this case. Now, we've seen some of those files get unsealed recently, but believe me, it is just the very, very tip of the iceberg.
And this number, it's just mind-boggling. Even with all the recent document dumps you've seen in the news, experts estimate there are still more than 1 million pages of files related to this case that are sealed, completely hidden from public view.
You know, the whole Epstein story is this chilling reminder that wealth and power can build a fortress around the most disgusting crimes. But they can't bury the truth forever. With so much information still locked away, it really leaves us all with one final, haunting question. What truths have yet to be revealed? And will we ever, truly, know the full story?